Thank everyone for coming. I'm Matt Weir. I'm a graduate of the class of 1990 and a friend of Don Steele's. I'm also privileged to be a member of the Board of Trustees and to be the father of a freshman student. A very bright lady wrote me some wonderful remarks that I just don't do well reading, so I'll wing it. So Don and I overlapped here at school, and Don has gone on to do amazing things in the field of marketing, specifically digital marketing, social media, fan engagement, as his title is. And it's amazing to me, and it really demonstrates the true value of a Washington College education, that students come here to a liberal arts college and they learn to think, they learn to communicate, they learn to be part of the fabric of society. And Don graduated, went on to work for a company that did catalogs. And Dad, when we were here, the internet was still quite new. And things like Facebook, things like Twitter, Snapchat, all these things that Don knows far more about than I do, except for punishing my children for using them inappropriately. Don knows all about these things, but they didn't exist then. And so for a history major, I think it's pretty amazing to reflect on the path that Don has taken. So anyway, so Don has been kind enough to come here and speak. He just met with some students and spoke to the students. He's met with our marketing team here at the college and shed some light on some of the strategies that we're employing. And he's very kindly agreed to talk here. And so I'm very happy to welcome Don. And I thank you for making the trip from New York, particularly on not the greatest weather. And I thank you for the speech. I hope I did it justice.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've just got to say it's really somewhat an honor and humbling to be here. There are some people who taught me here, maybe not to the degree they wanted to at the time. There are some friends of mine who graduated with, we were friends with. It's really kind of a thrill for me. And it's funny, I think the last time I was in this room, I was bartending for like a graduation reception in here. And as some of the people who saw me earlier, I had a lot of side hustles when I went here, and like the catering department and other things. Putting up tents was something I did. And so like, just like funny being here on this side, not having to give people cheap drinks. Or rich drinks, depending on what you want to do. So anyway, I am the Senior Vice President of Multi-Platform Marketing and Fan Engagement for Comedy Central, which is literally the coolest job you can have. I hope everyone knows about Comedy Central, and before we get started, I'm just going to show you guys a quick video and hope this works about Comedy Central.
Oh, it's on.
KMB, where you at? Where you at? KMB, where you at?
The show is being honored this morning in New York with a Peabody Award.
Thank you to everybody who made an entry into our online contest this season.
We are officially on the same insurance.
Sammy, we did it!
We got dental.
Dental!
And you
I'm
gotta
going
take
to
it
get a ruby filling and a fang for apples.
A fang.
And then I'm going to get my voice loaded.
Voice loud.
Yes, so I can talk to birds.
I'd like to cash these nickels, and I'll have them in quarters, please. Thank you so much.
Broad City got picked up for season 2.
Oh, congratulations.
Are you excited for Abby and Alana?
We're like feminist heroes right now.
I need you to read and sign the employee manual. Details a lot of the workplace policies. One of them is proper workplace attire.
Oh, okay. Well, I could just cover this one. Oops. Hey.
It also details our sexual harassment policies.
Got it.
A lot of characters.
Yes.
Most of them, is it fair to say, idiots?
Yes.
What's wrong with you? Like, your face isn't even moving.
Since my tear ducts are now closed, the only way I can cry is through my mouth.
There's a new way to never be without my show. Just download my network's new official app, which for some reason is called Comedy Central.
The Comedy Central app is available for free on all of your devices.
Gotta be an app for that.
You can catch up on other great programs like Southern Park, hashtag 12 o'clock, Workplace Comedy, Future Simpsons, Chicktown, and of course, The John Daly Show.
Catch it on the app.
All right, so that's a little bit about Comedy Central, and I hope you guys all saw this. So I wanted to share a Facebook post I made about 2 weeks ago. It said, if the kids at WC are lucky, I also may throw a slide in on selling t-shirts based on drinking games door to door. This is my Facebook post about the thing here. So again, I'm really honored to be here. It's quite exciting. What I'd like to do in this talk is actually talk first about Comedy Central. I can give you then the nickel on how I got here, although Matt did a pretty good job of saying it. And I can give a little bit on career advice. Some people heard this before, but I'll give the same things. But I really do want to talk about how Comedy Central does this digital marketing thing that we do, and it's a really exciting part of my job and my career. So who can name more than 2 people on this slide? Yes?
Is Mark Zuckerberg on the top left?
Yep.
David Karp on the bottom mid?
Yep. And do you know, can you tell people who David Karp is?
David Karp is the founder of Tumblr.
Right. So these guys, we have Mark Zuckerberg on the top right. In the middle, we have a guy named Jack Dorsey who built a thing called Twitter, you may have heard of. On the far left, we have a guy named Kevin Systrom who built a thing called Instagram. Again, you may have heard of. We have a guy in the bottom right named Dennis Crowley who built a thing called Foursquare, which is not as relevant as it was like a year ago when I first did this, but he's still there. We have David Karp from Tumblr. He built Tumblr. And on the right, or the far left, we have a guy named Evan Silverman who built Pinterest. I can add like 10 other people to this slide. But here's the thing. I work for Comedy Central, and the core part of the Comedy Central demo is marketing to guys and people age 18 to 34. And what's great about Comedy Central is that these guys built these apps and these experiences that are so vital to your lives when they were 18 to 34. And when I think about that with the job I have at Comedy Central, is these guys are building billion people communities. And as a brand who is dedicated to servicing the people in that demo, they're doing it at that age. And so it makes me think a couple things. It's like these guys are building things that are changing the life. And as a marketer in the digital world, I have to be there with them. Number 2 is like they are building these singular experiences, and how can a brand like Comedy Central be part of it? And number 3 is, I know for a fact all of these guys have watched Comedy Central shows in their lives. They've all watched South Park. They all want to figure out a way the Daily Show can be on their app, be in their experience. I've emailed most of them, which is pretty cool as well, so that's a good fun part. But that's a lot about what I think about, is how can Comedy Central as a brand be part of this? Comedy Central is not a television network. A lot of you guys may have come in thinking here it was, but it's not, right? Comedy Central is a brand. And for Comedy Central, and for a brand like Comedy Central to change how we think about that, from going to people just passively watching TV at 10 o'clock to being a brand that's part of your life, that changes. Because what I market is not just television shows. Television shows presently make the most money for Viacom and Comedy Central, but the computer that you guys all use, that has banners and that has video ads that makes money, and that needs to be marketed with a lot of thought. We have very, very powerful apps. The Comedy Central TV Everywhere app that I hope at least someone in here has been downloaded a couple million times. It works on Xbox, Roku, iTunes, Android, all these places. That needs to be marketed. We have a video game, the South Park Stick of Truth. We have lots of video games. These things need to be marketed. We market tours, we market events. So it's not just marketing television shows. And the way we look about this is these conversations we have with people, we get to be a bigger brand. Because if we just thought only about television, we would be dead in 18 months. Because I guarantee you, most of you people who are watching, who are in the core demo or in this room, do not watch linear television the way that I did. You guys, you watch apps, Netflix, Amazon Prime, maybe illegally, I don't know. But all this stuff kind of happens with content, and so it's how are we part of that life, and that's how we think about it, more than just a television station. So when I started in this TV marketing, it was talking about television show marketing, and the way you did that is that you said, like, who are you trying to market to? You want to market to people. You wanted what you wanted to tell them. You want to tell them to tune in at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. This is how you did it. This concept of heavying up, which is buying advertising before something starts. So when you're watching the reason a lot of television shows have ratings on Thursdays that are important, and that's when CBS put The Big Bang Theory on Thursday because it's the highest rated. What happens every Friday? What's a big thing that happens every Friday in this country?
Happy hour.
Happy hour, good. Movies come out. So you have your highest rated shows on the nights before movies. Good, but that's also like The Onion does some great stuff with happy hour content. When I first started, it was like you'd buy advertising on billboards and outdoor and websites, and it was just buying media, right? I'm just going to buy media, buy impressions, buy all this stuff, and now it's changed. And you guys who are in marketing, there's this concept called a marketing funnel. And the marketing funnel is when you get from awareness to actually viewership or purchase. So it's when you first hear about something until when you do something. That's what it used to be. When I went to Washington College and I sold t-shirts door to door, I raised awareness by putting t-shirts out there, and then people bought them. So it was a very, very short funnel. Now, we're not marketing television shows, we're marketing franchises. And we're marketing something bigger because we don't just want you to stop at 10 o'clock because we know that's not how you interact with it. So we're marketing a person in the demo who has expressed affinity to something. So when we're marketing a show, we know a little bit more about you than we used to. So we know that maybe you like workplace comedies because of something, so we're going to advertise Workaholics. Maybe you're a female and we'll advertise Broad City to you. Maybe you've liked political humor and that's why I advertise The Nightly Show to you. So a little bit this affinity so we can spend a little bit smarter. We're marketing things that are television shows, website, apps, tours. We're marketing a lot more than just a singular product. And now it's 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. It's always on in terms of thinking about what's going to happen. Because when a guy from Workaholics is in Parks and Rec, we now have to market that Parks and Rec exists, so the reason this guy's on there is because of that. It's this bigger story that we're telling. And again, it's some of the same things about TV, billboards, web, phone, radio, social networks, but it's not just buying media and saying it's there, it's a content experience. And so I was talking to some people earlier about billboards and about subway advertising. So one thing that we do in New York is there's this guy who invented like LASIK surgery called Dr. Zismore. And he has these, on trains, subways, he has these spots that are very simple. And we did a thing with the Kroll Show where it was Dr. Armand, who you saw, was like the puppy plastic surgeon. So we basically had the exact copy of the billboard. We put a URL for the thing about this. So you build this content experience so it works. And the other thing about this content experience is we really want to think about how you can share this marketing. Because it's like 1.5 clicks. That's how long we have you for. When you see an ad, when you see something on Instagram, when you see something in social, it's what can you do quickly. And if that doesn't work on a mobile phone, if it doesn't work on your tablet, if it is asking you to give information before you can watch a video, like no one ever is going to enter an email address to watch a video ever again. Those days are long gone. And if we're not thinking about that, we're failing. So we're thinking about how people use this stuff. So this idea of content experiences is really exciting. So what else? So now the new marketing funnel, right? It's a lot fuller. It's a lot more things. It's awareness, it's interest, it's affinity, it's intent, it's viewership. But then from there, it doesn't just stop from the ratings. It's how are we building fan bases? How are we engaging with these people all the time? How are we letting them tell our story? A few people have heard this already, but one of my favorite things that happens on a Sunday is I'll look at the Comedy Central Twitter feed, and there'll be someone who says, I wasted my whole day watching Workaholics. And that's not wasting a day, right? That is a person who has spent the best day they can possibly spend with our brand. So we will go in on Twitter and respond to them, that singular person, and say, thanks, we hope you had a great day. Or that day wasn't wasted. We'll go in and talk to these people. And before, you could never do that with television programs. But now you can. It's a really powerful way of talking to people, and it really gets someone from being a passive viewer to an active participant. And one of the things we learn about, when I say this marketing with millennials, the word with is super intentional in that. Because I'm not marketing to you, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm part of this with you. Because that's how people want to be treated, especially younger people. One of the great things that we always talk about from our research team is there are 2 things that were in millennials' lives that were not in my life. One, my parents didn't have a thing that said baby on board. They didn't care that I was in the car. I didn't even have a car seat. But that was putting the child first. The second thing is the Nintendo DS, which was a device specifically built for kids to build their own programming experiences. So it wasn't going to churn a channel and hoping I had something there. This was stuff that was only made for kids. And these things that you had growing up, you experience content differently than I did, and so we have to be responsive to that. So that's where this content experience stuff comes in. I think Dr. Cregan is scared of me at this moment. So one of the things you hear about marketing, right, is you'll hear people talk about marketing as storytelling and all this kind of stuff. And you get this phrase of the dot to dot, right? And so it's here's a story, Dr. Seuss, Cat in the Hat, a classic story. And it's no longer about Comedy Central telling people our story. It's putting the dots out there so that you can connect it. So when you see a billboard that's funny, and you post an Instagram picture and we like your Instagram picture, that billboard, it's connecting the dots for you. That you're like, why did Comedy Central like that picture? Because of this. And all this stuff out there is happening. So that it's getting people to become part of our brand advocates. And not just saying, like, please watch at 10 o'clock, please watch. But things, apps, Facebook pages, Twitter feeds, all this kind of stuff. Someone asked a question earlier about the El Dante dentist, right? It's a little joke within Broad City, but we built a whole world about that little joke so that when you find that, you know that we're connecting the dots for you and we're putting it out there and we're adding value. So if you dare search for the El Dante dentist, we're going to make you laugh that way. So that's a lot of what we do. So what's next? So one of the things that we do as a marketing department, and a classic marketing trait, is competitive analysis, right? Anyone who's taken a business class, this is like 101. Tell us two businesses and compare them. Which is doing better? It can be a tennis racket company, sneakers, shoes. You do this competitive analysis. But in the world that we live in right now, our basic competition is television and websites and stuff like this, but it's also what we call non-competitive analysis, which is exciting. Because now brands like Red Bull, DiGiorno, Movember, they can be part of people's communities. So in Movember, right, they always do a thing about the best mustaches in television. And the best one is from Reno, or the best one is Randy Marsh from South Park. They acknowledge us, we acknowledge them. It's this type of stuff. DiGiorno's Twitter feed is very smart and very funny. We never thought DiGiorno was competition when I started, but now they are, because they're competition for your hearts and minds. And obviously brands like Red Bull and Nike that are so much bigger out there, they're part of something. Any questions so far? Any thoughts? Dr. Cregan, how am I doing? Pretty good, okay. Marketing now is not just buying media. There are a litany of tools that we use. We have a lot of data. There's a ton of data in marketing. I was talking to some of the people in marketing before about how much data goes into it. When you see ads on websites, it's not by mistake most of the time. The reason that if you're wearing a gray sweater, you may get an ad about a gray sweater versus me in a blazer is because they know what we've purchased before. So things on Facebook, always look at your right-hand rail on Facebook and see the ads and think about how I got that. So if you went to a Baltimore Ravens game and bought a ticket on Ticketmaster, you're going to get a lot of Baltimore ticket things. But this data is really important to what we do because we know more about you than we do before. We know when you like stuff. We know where you like it, the type of device you use, when you're using things. All these things that make it very, very valuable for us to have this relationship with you and make it a lot better as a marketing person to give you the stuff you want where you want it. Because if you have an Android phone and we advertise an app that doesn't work on Android, what are you going to do? You're not going to go buy an iPhone or call your parents and say, can I please get an iPhone because I want this app. You're going to ignore it and get the app that works. So we're not going to advertise you on the Android. If you have an iPhone and the app works, we're going to advertise you there. So thinking about things like that. So all these things are tools that marketers can use. And again, I was a history major, right? Not good at math, not good at science, but these things make me a good marketer because it is a relationship between art and science. So affinity data, right? This is a fun thing. So we have, as some of you may know, the roast of Justin Bieber coming up. So there is something about James Franco in the world of affinity data that is really interesting for us when we wanted to market a show, because we're Comedy Central, we're marketing the roast a couple years ago, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll just market to the people who are fans of the Pineapple Express, of all these 120, like all this stuff about him. But do you guys know what the biggest, most active community about James Franco is online? What television show? I'm not crying. Right, General Hospital. So Comedy Central never markets to General Hospital fans. But we did for the roast of James Franco and did really well. This guy, Tom Huddlestone, is huge on Tumblr. So when we had a video with him, instead of releasing it on our own page or YouTube, we put on Tumblr first because that's where his fans are. So we know more about where people are, so we can give them and turn them from people to advocates and acknowledge their behaviors. He's been on General Hospital for a couple of arcs of the show in this like non-ironic James Franco kind of way. And General Hospital has like 18 million fans on Facebook, and they're really passionate. So, any other General Hospital questions while I'm here? No, we're good? All right, later on I'll do my whole General Hospital bit, it's good. So this is a kind of really funny tool that I thought I'd show you. So we have this tool called Social Guide. And what this is 4 minutes of an episode of South Park, and this is everyone who's tweeted about it in those 4 minutes. So this is the kind of stuff we know about people. And these orange and yellow, so oranges are people with more than 500 followers, orange is 5,000, and red is 50,000. So like here, someone with 50,000 followers tweeted about how great South Park was. And from a brand, it's like, do I pick this guy who has maybe 18 followers, or do I pick the 500,000 person? So it's that kind of level of data which makes this really fun. So you can go in and talk to these people and find the most influential people to help tell your story. One of the things we were talking about before is that Comedy Central can tell you all these things we want you to do. But when Lady Gaga says that Broad City is the best show on TV, there are a lot more people who care that that voice is being heard, and that's important to us, and so that's something special. So those type of things, it's no longer about us just telling our story, it's about sharing the community experience. Okay, let's talk a little about South Park, and this is some fun stuff. So South Park and data. You have the basic, most data point of South Park. It has like 263 episodes. I promise everyone has at least heard of the show. And I guess who's watched more than 50 episodes? All right, nice. Good job, Michelle. Excellent. So one data point about South Park is that 97 times Kenny died. In the first couple seasons, every episode had a, oh my God, they killed Kenny. So that's one bit of data about South Park that we have out there. Here's a bunch of other data. And this is a few months old. It has over 50 million people who like it on Facebook. It is the #1 show on cable on Facebook. And I will tell you guys, this is a fact. When Facebook first opened up to grown-ups, when you guys, were on it and I wasn't, I convinced the guys at South Park to take over the South Park Facebook page. Because we worked with Facebook, and I said, you guys may want to do this. And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. I'm like, yes, you do. And now it's their #1 driver of traffic and business on everything that they do. So that's a vital thing. Every week, these posts on Facebook get seen by 19 million people. Like 20 million people we can talk to in social media about South Park on a weekly basis. It has 1.1 million Twitter followers. And the average episode gets 1,600 mentions per minute when it's on. That's a lot of people talking about this great show. And on Facebook, basically, we've partnered with Facebook, is that no one in the world is more than 2 friends away from someone who likes South Park. If you think about that. So if anyone in this room who knows me knows I like South Park, like that's the whole world. Like you can't go around the world and find more than 2 people without South Park, so that's pretty awesome. So here's a little video from South Park that I intentionally picked for this room for some fun.
My name is Dan Schneider, proud owner of the Washington Redskins football team. In the name of decency, I am asking that you please stop using the name Washington Redskins to refer to your company.
Stop? But why?
You have no right to use our name to get attention.
The trademark got pulled, so I'm totally free to use the name, actually.
Look, don't you see that when you call your organization the Washington Redskins, it's offensive to us?
How is it offensive?
It's derogatory, Mr. Cartman. It makes us feel like a joke.
Guys, I have total respect for you. When I named my company Washington Redskins, it was out of deep appreciation for your team and your people.
Well, we don't feel very respected.
Hey!
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to give you guys a little case study about how this asset of content was used. So the first episode of South Park this year was about the NFL and the kind of crazy atrocities going on. And obviously there might be some controversy at the Redskins name. I'm not totally sure. But we could not, like if you go back to the original marketing thing, the easiest thing we could have done would be to try and get that ad into an NFL football game across the whole country and hope that they saw it. I don't think the NFL would have allowed it because they just would look at that and be like, no, they can't do it. So that's called national advertising, right? That's like big, when you watch a thing and you see a big ad, that's what we do. What we were able to do was buy what they call a local avail in one station in Washington, D.C., who don't care about the joke about the Redskins, they just want the money. So this ad ran on one television station one time in the Redskins-Eagles, which is the first game of the season. And that is only seen by like 232,000 people when they look at all these Nielsen ratings. That would be the peak if everyone like stopped what they're doing, watched the commercials, didn't get another beer, didn't do anything. That's what they were doing. Like, so those are the Nielsen ratings. So that ad could have been seen by 232,000 people if we had just bought TV. But instead of doing that, we wanted to make sure that the 59 million or the 50 million South Park fans, all these people can see it and share it and be in on the joke immediately. So what did we do is that we posted the video up on our YouTube channel, and a lot of people started talking about it. So Politico, which is a political website, has nothing to do about South Park. They loved the fact that it's making fun of the Redskins. That's not our core demo, but because they talked about it, it's interesting to us. We posted the video on our Facebook channel, and as you can see, the video had over 28,000 people sharing it. It was seen by 33 million people based upon a little bit of advertising and people sharing it. And this video is watched on Facebook 12 million times. It didn't cost us anything to post it. We spent $50,000 buying a little bit of advertising, so that 230,000 that watched it on TV, 8 million people saw it on Facebook. And then all these people shared it and commented and did all this stuff like that with it. So it became, this asset became something huge that wasn't limited to TV, that was now part of your life. In addition, we then posted it on YouTube, right? I think you guys watch videos on YouTube. We did not spend 1 cent of money advertising. We just told people that's where it was. And now it's been seen by over 4 million people. But in those first 3 days, it was over 2 million people. Then we posted on Twitter in a native video player, so it works when you're on your phone on Twitter. And that was seen by another like 85,000 people. And the tweet was shared all this time. The South Park became a trending topic in Washington, D.C. during the football game, so we could buy advertising based upon people who were talking about that for this. So it's this native player, this content experience that makes it very easy for you to see it and share it. And then also we posted on Instagram with a picture and saying go there, because we don't want to post a video to Instagram because people don't do it, but we make sure there's a good one-by-one image. So we took this one asset that could have been seen by 230,000 people and now have it seen by millions of people to market the show. And it doesn't cost that much, but now we're part of your life. And I'll tell you guys one amazing fact about the video. So that was the first game of the season. Any Redskins fans here? All right, what would have happened between the first and second game of the season that made that video funny? RG3 got injured. In the actual episode of South Park, they had switched it to Kirk Cousins. And so South Park is that nimble, so all the stories you may have heard about South Park doing episodes in 2 days, is that true? Like they changed it because they knew the quarterback, they knew the joke wouldn't be real in the episode had they not changed it in 2 days, and that's how brilliant those guys are. So there's a bit of fun for you. So for you guys, which platform are we using to market South Park here? Snapchat. Yep. That's why you're in the front row, man. You're killing it. So this is a platform that most of the college students in here know and love and are passionate about. Most of the people who are not college students probably are a bit afraid of, because that's why Matt's kids are getting grounded for using it. But again, like Comedy Central is a brand that has to be relevant on these platforms. If you're on Snapchat as a kid, we are one of 11 brands that has a Snapchat Discover channel. So Snapchat only picked 11 companies to have these video channels in there, and we're one of them, which is awesome. And in terms of this thing about being a bigger brand, that's not driving people to watch TV, that's building this brand alliance. And I was telling some people earlier, about 2 years ago, I was in LA and went to the Snapchat office. I'm like, hey, I'm Comedy Central, what do we want to do? And they're like, wow, that's cool. I'm like, you guys are building an amazing platform. That's like a fun part of my gig, is getting to know these people. What's next? So here's another thing, just in terms of this content experience, right? Email blasts. A lot of you in marketing probably get emails. You all use them, you get them from people. But it's making sure that they work on these different platforms. So that the big email blast you may get on this screen if you're here about a company is like, how does it work on your phone? And what I would encourage you guys, if you're looking for jobs and stuff, this screen is going to die within like 18 months. It's all tablets and phones. So the more you can think about how those things work, and we think about that all the time, it's really vital to your success. Another thing we do in this content experience, right, is with the show Drunk History, a Baltimore native, Derek Waters, is the guy behind it, so you guys should all be somewhat proud as people who live in Maryland, is, you know, on your Facebook timeline, you can go back and say, like, this is when I was born, this is when I did this is when I went to high school, whatever. You guys may be looking at Facebook and be like, it's already overdone, don't waste my time. But instead of programming on Facebook about what happened on this day, we publish back in history. So what may have happened today 40 years ago, we drunkify it, and that's how we post on Facebook. So it's using the platform the way it's supposed to be used versus just telling people, watch our show, watch our show. It's giving a little bit of nuggets of jokes. Dumb Starbucks. Anyone know what this is?
It's a fake Starbucks.
Yeah, so there's a television show on Comedy Central called Nathan for You. And what this guy does is he gives bad business advice, or he gives business advice to small businesses. And one of the things he encouraged a coffee shop to do was to rename itself Dumb Starbucks, but not be considered a coffee shop, but be considered a parody art store. So basically every bit of coffee, everything he sold, he was selling under the parody law, which is brilliant. So this happens where this guy builds this Dumb Starbucks, launches it for a couple of days, it gets shut down. There were thousands of people waiting in line to get to Dumb Starbucks, this art thing, because they didn't know what it was. These cups were selling on eBay for like $300 afterwards. But as a marketing organization, we have to help tell that story. Because if you don't live in Echo Park, LA, and are not the hipster who can go to this coffee shop, you want to know that this is part of our world and connect the dots. And so that's a lot of what we're doing, is like making sure people see these things. And then here's this data part that's kind of creepy, right? I was telling you before about what we know about you. So this guy, Nathan for You, like these are ads if you lived in Boston. It's like, I know you, you live in Boston, and you're Pandora. Like this is an ad on Pandora if you live in Boston. The ad on Pandora if you live in Baltimore is going to be different. The ad on ESPN is going to be different where you live. So this kind of data, which makes it both fun and kind of creepy, but it's how this stuff is part of our world and how we market with people these days. Facebook trends. So here's like an interesting thing on Facebook is that, and this is, you guys are probably in on this now, but 3 months ago it wasn't as popular, but one picture of Broad City leads to a trailer being posted by a website, leads to it becoming a Facebook trend. And all of a sudden it's like, how are we participating in there? Because this was done in November, and this is a show about Broad City in 4 months later. But if you think about that, like that's this whole like 365 days a year. Things happen that you're no longer in control of. It's not the marketing window you want. It's about, this is the story we want to share. And so a lot of this goes on. Key and Peele, I just showed you this, I knew you guys like this, the whole texting thing. So again, it's using these different platforms to make sure that people see our content. So you can see that we posted a video on Facebook. It has 14 million views. On YouTube, it has 5 million views. It's just talking about making sure we're giving you guys content, giving millennials content wherever they are, whenever they are, and how they want it. And so thinking about that is very different. It's no longer these like quote unquote walled gardens. We want to be part of your life where you are. And so that's kind of a cool thing. So anyway, the net of this from Comedy Central is this concept of a recipe, right? This is the general marketing. I learned this in chemistry class. Is everything, there's always a recipe or a formula to get things. So from Comedy Central, we, at the end of the day, we want brand loyalty. We don't want you watching just a TV show. We want you to be part of our brand. And so for that to happen, it's a combination of data, so we know a little bit about you. We make sure the marketing is going to work for you, where you are, when you are, all this kind of stuff. We want these fun content experiences so that you then, it works, right? It works in the thing you are. It's a bit fun. It's a bit of a surprise and delight in terms of how you're marketing, in terms of making sure that we're making you laugh. Obviously, that's what Comedy Central wants to do. Providing some humor to your day. And so these content experience press that surprise and delight is going to build to this brand loyalty. So that's kind of the concept of how Comedy Central markets to and with millennials. Any questions about that or any thoughts or any? Yes?
In terms of sort of combating the general cynicism towards advertising that's kind of started to arise in young people, is the full content experience and surprise and delight, would you say that that's a huge portion of that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be shouting at you. We want to be talking with you. And I think that people are very, very aware of, or more and more aware of like how their data is being used, in that, Susan may start seeing ads for sailboats or skiing because she was recently skiing and she lives a fancier life than I do. And it's like people are catching on to that, and I think eventually people will opt out of it. How many people in this room have ad blockers on their website? That's a lot. Do you guys know what ad blockers are? So that's a lot of people who have figured out a way to cheat this whole business and are watching our content for free and getting rid of ads. And so how do we make things that don't look like ads, but are ads and are experiences that you can share and stuff like that? And so there's healthy cynicism and skepticism, but we feel it's like building a brand and not just thinking about a TV show, then we're gonna be part of your life, and you're gonna see an Instagram picture of Comedy Central that'll maybe make you smile or make you laugh and maybe wanna download an app or watch a TV show or go on tour or buy a video game, do all that stuff. That's what you should do. Any other questions? Yes?
As the competition for students for a college like Washington College heats up, how would your recipe, how would you apply that? You know the college very well. How would you apply that to Washington College?
Sure, I talked to some people in admissions earlier, and a lot of it is about, like, and I was telling Matt earlier, is like maybe the word college is what gets in the way of marketing Washington College, because you're selling an experience, and the reason that I came back here today is because I really loved coming here. It was an important part of my life, and that's an experience I have. It wasn't college. It was about the experience of this place, and so how do you market that? So it's more than just telling people about, hey, you can come here for 4 years, pay all this money, do all these classes, you're it. That's college, right? But now you're selling more. You're selling relationships with people. You're selling a wonderful faculty. You're selling an amazing dining hall that didn't exist when I was here, believe it or not. All these type of things are selling, and so thinking about that a little bit is maybe where the pivot has to be in some respect. I advocated for you guys buying a billboard in Salisbury with some jokes about Salisbury on the shore, but I don't think anyone's going to buy that. But like those are little things that if you buy that billboard and post it to your alumni as opposed to a picture of me, make people like the school a little bit more. Yes?
So you used guys a lot.
Yes.
And the target audience being 18 to 34-year-old men.
Yep.
So I'm neither of those things. And so I think about what the demographics are saying.
Yeah.
And Washington College is, like many institutions of our size and shape, are trending 60-40 women to men. And there's a male crisis apparently in the United States. So how does that shift in a bunch of different things change, or is it changing your business?
It's totally changing our business, and the next time I come here, you will not hear me use the phrase guys as much. The whole cable industry, so there are kind of three things about this presentation that are really fun, is that none of this existed when I came here. Comedy Central did not exist when I was at Washington College. The internet really didn't exist when I went here. And these phones that are so prevalent, they didn't exist at all. We had pay phones that we had to use and schedule time with your parents. And you'd call them collect, and then they'd hang up on you and call you back. Like, that's how money we were in cheating the system. And so a lot of it is how is this changing, right? Because the whole industry of cable was built about, let's make these super served cable networks about certain types of people. So I worked for a while at the Food Network, and that was aimed at women 25 to 44, and that was it. Then you have TV Land, which is part of Viacom, which is aimed at like women 44 to this, because we own Nickelodeon, which is aimed at kids, and what should their parents watch? And so all these like super niche TV networks, and now we're competing with a company like Facebook and YouTube that is like buying very specific people, and there's not advertising waste. And so when you see a billboard and you're driving down here, and I saw like a billboard for a hunting store, I hate to break it to you, I don't hunt in New York City, right? So that billboard was wasted for me. If that billboard, and this is happening in certain metropolitan areas, is smart enough to know when I'm watching and the type of person I am based upon a little bit of data, that could have been a smarter thing. That could have been about a, whatever the bar, who was telling me about a bar that everyone's going to later tonight? Could have been about that, maybe I'll go there. So like that's the kind of stuff in terms of advertising that's getting smarter, and obviously when you're, Viacom, I used to work for Comedy Central, Spike, and TV Land across the group, and Spike is really guy-centric. And that's like so guy and so focused, like at least Comedy Central is like 60-40. But we sell like most of the ads you see on Comedy Central and one of the biggest complaints we have when we talk to women about Comedy Central is they don't like the ads. They like the shows, but they don't like ads for telephone, for weird dating sites. They don't like ads for energy drinks all the time. They don't like ads for violent video games all the time. But those are people who advertise on us. So how do we pivot our site to be a little more reflective about the community? Yes?
Now, I'm not going to ask you a question that I don't know anything about.
Okay.
That's the subject you're talking about. I don't know anything. But a company like Clear Channel that has all these billboards. What in the world is the future of that company? What are they thinking about?
Well, if you look, I don't know as much about Clear Channel, but my wife's family is from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and that's Comcast country, according to every billboard that when you go through there, and I guess Comcast owns a lot of those billboards, and they're getting a lot smarter with the types of billboards they are. And I think that, Clear Channel has a bunch of radio stations. It does own some local television spots. And I think what you're seeing allow like media companies is this kind of consolidation and expansion. And so the billboard industry, and this is like one of the things about advertising, is when it's this like grandfathering people in, like we've always done it this way, this is how we do it. And so now billboards are becoming a different value proposition. And maybe smaller businesses are going to go get there. Maybe they need to be more localized. Maybe it can be a place for, when you go to San Francisco, the billboards are all about like shared workspace companies and apps, which you don't see in New York. So New York is all about TV stuff, because New York is also where Madison Avenue is based. It's where people are based. But I think that, I'm guessing the guy in charge of billboard sales at Clear Channel is either hoping he can, maybe retire soon, or is thinking about other stuff to do with it, and the different platforms and how to make them smarter.
But could your work apply to retailers? It would seem to apply.
Oh, totally.
A lot. And do you talk to people in the retail business?
Yeah, that's a lot of where this like kind of non-competitive competitive analysis comes in, is that I was, when this whole, you guys have probably heard the phrase like big data, like what it means, like, oh, big data, blah, 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 like who knows what it means. But like one of the things I learned from a retailer about it is that this guy in California that I'm friends with, who owns this company called Sport Chalet, which is their regional sporting goods company, he looks at traffic data based upon the LA has a very public traffic API, which meaning they pump out data. So he knows that there's construction in his area, and if there is going to be construction on a street near one of his stores, he turns the prices up because people are forced to shop because they're not going to want to leave. Like if you live in LA, you don't ever cross where there's traffic. If you know there's traffic, you never leave, so you shop. So instead of selling a tennis racket for $99, when he knows there's going to be traffic and construction, he makes it $129 and sells as many, and he makes more money. So that's like using different types of data, so retailers do this. And you see a lot of it in terms of the different platforms, apps people have and experiences and when they're doing stuff. So retail is big on this.
So it's just clever usage of big data.
Yeah.
Is what you do.
Kind of. Yes.
Content influences the social conversation, creates it. When do you see the social conversation really starting to directly influence the content?
We did a couple tests this summer with some kind of, I can answer a bunch of different ways. A lot, right? Like we did a thing this summer for a sponsor, which was like the greatest summer in 3 days. Like your favorite this. And what it was is people had to tweet us using that hashtag, and then we made videos in real time based upon what they do, like that whole old space guy thing. We have a television show called At Midnight, where the social conversation influences what people talk about every single day. So it is a lot more give and take. And you see a lot of these interactive TV shows now based upon like, oh, this is what this said here, and this is the hottest this, and this is that. So there is that. And obviously from a place like Comedy Central is when we are developing a show and when we're finding people to work with us from any level, is we want to know how they know how to use this space. So it's beyond just a TV show, right? It's, when we're doing the roast, we're hiring a bunch of really smart Viners to go do Vines for us, which is different than me trying to do a Vine, so it's cool. Yes?
So how do you actually control all your data? You have about 1 million data points. Something like, I know when Jon Stewart came out with his announcement for retiring, obviously I don't know if that was strategic or not to leak that, but how do y'all manage your content so it goes in the direction that y'all want?
You can't. Like, we can't control it. Like, people are going to do with it what they want to do. And obviously one of the great things, like the best part about my job is, like, I've known Michelle for a long time, and she's a wonderful teacher, and you guys are very lucky to have her here. Every once in a while, she'll post about Jon Stewart on Facebook, about something he said, and she does it in a way that it's like he has said it better than she can. And it's because she doesn't have a camera or writers or whatever, because she probably could. But it's like, that's what comedy does. There are other people who use it in a way that's negative. Like, there are South Park things where people take it in the way that's not directed. And we can't control it, right? Like, I can't control what you're going to write on anything about Comedy Central. You can plan to have it not go wrong. And then there's all this data, and it's like figuring out what is the most actionable. And there's so much data out there that you can like nerd out over it, but what are you trying to do with it? And even to President Grizzle's point, like all this data about retailers, like not every retailer is looking at traffic data. trying to think about it, but like this one guy has thought about something and it's like, this is my unique way of doing it. In my own experience with this, like that's where the James Franco thing came from. It was like, what, you know, like one of the things about like Facebook pages, like when was the last time anyone liked a Facebook page? A long time ago, right? But now it's like you did like a movie from 4 years ago, and so we can advertise to that movie and no one else is advertising that movie because they've forgotten about it. No one else thought that men who watch General Hospital would be important to watch, but it's like a data point out there that you can try and experiment with. And so it's really wonderful to do this kind of stuff. Any other questions? Yes?
Just to talk about other companies in general, I think it's the biggest mistake that other companies make when marketing.
Not hiring me.
Millennials, and where do you think this social component will be heading next?
I know that we're way ahead of the game in terms of the content experience side, because like when I see an ad, I was telling some people earlier, it's like if I click on a tweet and it doesn't work on my phone, like you're wasting money. Like an ad about that, or else like an ad about tuning into a TV show at 10 o'clock at night at 6 in the morning because your ad agency is turning it on and just wants to spend the money, because that's how ad agencies make money. So it's a little bit of the thought to it. And I think that, you know, what's interesting is that a lot of the companies we talk about with Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and all these people, we're like frenemies with them, right? Like all of you who have Facebook now are seeing a lot more video on Facebook. And I don't know if you noticed that as part of it, but it's like it is really getting big. Because Facebook is looking at YouTube and being like, we want their ad money. And guess who else makes money off of video? Comedy Central, right? So all those videos I put on YouTube, on Facebook, about South Park that were seen by all these millions of people, we didn't make a nickel off of. So like it's a frenemy, right? Like they're a marketing partner and a competitor, and so is this, like this world of frenemies is fun. Like yesterday, I was in a meeting with the head of marketing of Universal Pictures, and Universal's owned by NBC Comcast. So they're like direct competition, but they're releasing a movie this summer and it's got some of our talent. So we were like, well, how can we collaborate? And like, how can we go after Facebook about this Facebook data together? And it's like 10 years ago, that meeting never would have happened, where they would come and say, hey, we need your help. We would have maybe sold them advertising, but this is a greater partnership. My tie?
Your tie?
Yes.
The direct link between a history degree at Washington College and what you're doing.
Sure, so I can do it in a couple of steps. So my first job out of college, as Matt mentioned, was with Mitchell & Ness. And Mitchell & Ness makes historic baseball uniforms. And my senior thesis was about Jackie Robinson. So it was a kind of like close connection in terms of like, oh yeah, I know a little bit about Jackie Robinson. They make old baseball uniforms, I can do that. So that was the first part of my career in terms of connecting those singular dots. Because the other job I had an opportunity to get was with an insurance company. Didn't seem very fun at the time. I still think I made the right call on this one. But it was like that was the one-to-one connection. The other thing, as I was telling the people from the marketing group earlier, is that, you know, history, and I made this bad analogy and I'll do it again, like history is telling the stories of the winners, right? And that's what marketing is. It's telling your story with people. And if you think about, you know, as I said this before, like the Bayeux Tapestry, it's like that's history, but it's art, and that's marketing. Like that's marketing. We won this war, people. We made this because we won this. And so it's not a one-to-one connection. But I was very fortunate that my parents, when I came here, said, just study what you want to study. Don't think about, you know, having a job and being a business major and having to do the business comparison. And people I know who worked here who like had great careers because they did that. But I was very fortunate, and it's a great thing about Washington College is to be able to explore a little bit about being made to take chemistry. And you never thought you'd see me talk about a recipe or formula or any of this stuff. But you had to do it, right? And you learned. And so I took classes I wanted to take, and I was able to learn, and so it made me a little bit smarter. And also, you know, I told a few people this, like, there are two other things, right, that you guys are so lucky to have here, is number one, I know they make you write papers, but this whole written communication is vital. Like an email is a piece of communication that if you don't get right, you can really screw things up. And the second thing is by going to a small college, you have to learn how to communicate with people. And you have to see people and you talk to them, and so you have these relationships that you build. That when you go to these bigger schools, and I've had peers who've gone to big schools who just don't know how to talk to people, or actually how to listen, probably more importantly, because marketing is about listening, and so that's a little bit about you guys are very lucky to have. Yes, sir?
Write, speak, and think.
Totally. And tweet. Write, speak, think, and tweet. Or Snapchat, whatever you want to do. Anything else? Any other questions? Come on, you can have some fun here. Yes?
So you mentioned earlier that you kind of reach out to Viners during certain events. Viners. Have you ever reached out to any other sort of public content creators like YouTubers? Like, have you ever made actual partnerships with some YouTubers as sort of like?
Well, I mean, Workaholics was a show that came from YouTube, from Mail Order Comedy. One of the other things that we've done is, we're particularly proud of this one, is that there's like really good fake sports Twitter accounts, and occasionally for major sporting events we'll have them take over Comedy Central. So this guy Peyton's Head, who's a famous Twitter person, took over our account for the Super Bowl one year, which is awesome. We've had not Bill Walton take over our account for basketball games. We had Meta World Peace, Ron Artest, take over our account for a basketball game, which was fun, and all he did was talk about real estate. It's fun, like we can do it, we can experiment with that, and we have the brand permission, like that's the whole thing in marketing, is like what can your brand do? And Comedy Central can kind of play on the edges of like, yeah, it makes sense to have Ron Artest take over our Twitter account because he's a pretty funny guy and who knows where this will go. Like, you're in on that. So we've done stuff like that. Musicians have done stuff with us, so it's fun. Yes?
So let's say a young person graduates, they come to Comedy Central, and they want to talk to your division.
Go to my assistant, please. Oh, sorry.
What are you guys looking for in terms of basically young people?
Sure, so to get a job in social media, there are a couple things. One, you have to show that you know how to use these platforms. So if you're applying for a job in Comedy Central and you don't have a Twitter account, if you've got a really awesome fake one, send it. Like, don't be afraid to do that, but if you're not doing this stuff, we're not gonna pay attention to you. You have to know how these platforms work. The second thing is that it's, and I mentioned this even before in terms of the interviewing things, it's like, you have to show the initiative. Like, no one's gonna just give you a job because you wear the same tie as me or whatever. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. You have to show the initiative. So when you go on these interviews to Google people and say, wow, you went to Washington College, so did my uncle. Like, then you have a talking point and to show initiative and to do the extra things. And also, like, depending on the type of job you want, part of being in marketing is like doing stuff like this and talking and telling your story. So don't be afraid to follow someone on Twitter or to tell them like, hey, I saw you do this, nice job, reach out to people. I told some people before, like, one of the most flattering things that ever happened to me is that a woman last year who graduated from the Syracuse University Newhouse School of Media, which is like the best media place you can go, reached out to me to interview me for her senior thesis. And she found me on Twitter, she knew I was Comedy Central, and she's like, you're the best. I want to talk to you about this, about how television and second screens interact. And that's very flattering. And the reason, a couple of years ago I came down here and it's similar things, like people reaching out and saying, will you please come and do this? So like Matt, I posted on Facebook that I was speaking at a Baltimore Ad Week a few weeks ago, mainly to have drinks with some friends. And Matt said, will you come to the college? Because it might be interesting. And so that's how I'm here. So Matt, flattered me to come down here, and here I am. What else? How does Justin Bieber follow me on Twitter? Yes?
How fun is the day-to-day life at Comedy Central?
It is the best job in the whole world. I'm not kidding about that. I am so fortunate. I mean, I have to file invoices at times. There's like that, like part of working for a corporation. But literally, I can watch South Park for 5 hours in a day and be like, I'm just working on South Park. Like when I first started at Comedy Central, like I had been at the Food Network and I was like, oh cool, a TV in my office that only has the Food Network on it? This is the best. Like I've got TV, wow, that's cool. And now I'm like, I can just press a couple buttons and go to the tape library and like any comedy, like, oh yeah, I want to watch The 40-Year-Old Virgin today at 2 in the afternoon, I'm bored. Like I can go to the tape library and get it. It's the best. And also I think like for doing this digital stuff, like I know those people. I can email the people at Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr, and they'll get back to me about stuff. And it's cool, and it's very powerful to have that experience. And there's not a day in my life I don't cherish it and know how lucky I am to have the job that I do. But I also know that I worked really hard to get it, so it's a double-edged sword. Anything else?
How much were you fined for singing "Oh What a Night" at the top of your lungs in the quad?
I didn't get fined on that. I remember I don't think I got fined for that. I think I got in a little bit of trouble for that one. I think there's also like a bad breakup one time, because I went to the president's office earlier, and I'm like, oh, I've never been in here. I was like, I remember going to the dean of discipline once, but never that. So no, I didn't get fined. I never got in too much trouble. I didn't really break anything. I never got arrested. Nothing really bad, so.
Well, I'd certainly like to say that there's always tonight.
Yeah, there's always tonight, guys. Let's do it. And let's not make Frankie Valli song references anymore. It'll be like some hipster band. I'll sing some Run the Jewels for you guys later. How's that? Anything else?
I'd like to thank Don for coming.
Thank you.